From the nation's capital, Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. A weekly discussion about the federal issues most important to Nevada. And now, from Washington, D.C., here's Marilee Joyce.
And good day to you. I'm Marilee Joyce, and this is Eye on Washington, the only statewide Nevada news program produced in Washington, D.C. Every week, Eye on Washington takes you straight to Capitol Hill for a discussion with Nevada's delegation and other leaders about the federal matters that matter to you. Today's topic, she wants Nevada's explicit permission before the feds can build a nuclear waste repository. It's the latest in my guest's fight against nuclear waste storage in Nevada. My special guest today is that woman, Nevada U.S. Congresswoman Dina Titus. Thanks for being here again.
Always a pleasure. Thank
you. Well, she says, sure, you feds can build a repository if you show her you've got written consent from some big state leaders to do so. And today on Eye on Washington, we'll tell you my guest's bill demanding written consent from the governor and others before a shovel hits the ground. We'll tell you about her rare positive comment about an Energy Department statement on the project. And we'll ask her what's ahead in the unending effort to protect Nevada from housing the spent fuel. Well, the Congresswoman and her House colleague Joe Heck have joined forces to introduce the Nuclear Waste Informed Consent Act. The bill would permit the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to authorize construction of a nuclear waste repository only if the Secretary of Energy has the written consent from the following: the governor of the host state, the affected units of local government, and the affected Indian tribes. In a statement about her bill, the Congresswoman says her bill ensures that Nevada voices are heard and respected when it comes to the state's future. Congresswoman, you sound a bit fed up over the constant beat up. And, before we get to the bill, I'd like you to take our statewide audience back to 1987 and something that went down that led then Senator Richard Bryan to sort of coin a now famous descriptor of a certain bill back then.
Well,
what
that's
can you
right.
tell us?
Well, you're right. We've been fighting this since the 1980s. But I want to say I've never said, sure, you can build a repository here, no matter what you do. Yes.
That's true.
The
we
original,
want written consent either way.
The original bill called for 2 repositories to be built, one in the east and one in the west, and had certain conditions put in place. Then in 1988, an amendment was added to that bill, which narrowed the search just to Nevada. And that's when Richard Bryan referred to it as the Screw Nevada bill, because it was just all focused there, all the research, all the study, and the other sites were eliminated, and they abandoned the notion of even looking for one in the east.
You know, your legislation, you said this past spring, you said, quote, no other state or community would stand for this kind of political targeting that we have faced for far too long. Supporters of the proposed Yucca Mountain repository have ignored the concerns of Nevada and its local communities.
Well, that's exactly right. We don't have a place at the table. We can't veto this decision. And it's amazing to me that many of the Republicans who are pushing this to Nevada also say they're for states' rights. If you're for states' rights, you should recognize Nevada's right of refusal.
And Congressman Heck also had a quote. He said, the people of Nevada deserve to have a seat at the table in the nuclear waste storage conversation. Congresswoman, it's like your consent bill makes it clear. You're saying it's not too much to ask if the affected parties, they get to have a vote or a say on what they think about something that's going to affect them, especially something that greatly, correct?
Well, that's right. This is a bipartisan bill within the Nevada delegation. And Congressman Heck and I don't agree on many things, but we are the co-sponsors of this legislation because we both agree that Nevada's getting screwed.
It's an interesting point that despite, obvious, some party differences, some differences on issues, et cetera, that the one thing, there's a couple of issues, but especially the nuclear waste, the battle, the delegation really has come together, really ever since Senator Bryan was here. It's been a full delegation fight, pretty much, hasn't it?
Well, when it comes to gaming, when it comes to mining, and when it comes to Yucca Mountain, these are things we all have in common. But the Yucca Mountain opposition has gotten weaker than it's ever been in the past, with a couple of members of the delegation starting to waver a little. So that's something we got to work on.
There has been more than 30 years of opposition to the project by most of you again, and versus these unending attempts by the congresspersons and senators of other states to try to push that, and not only that, but also the NEI and Nuclear Energy Institute and et cetera, to force that nuclear waste storage on the state. But so far, knock on, you know, you and other state and national and local leaders, so far, you know, you've really been successful. I know that doesn't slow down how diligent you are, though, does it?
Well, we can't, because Senator Reid has been our champion in the Senate. If he weren't there, I don't know where we'd be. He's been fabulous. But he's leaving, so that means we have got to really raise our defenses. And you're right, especially Congressman Shimkus from Illinois. Other members want to get it out of their backyards and put it in Nevada, that old NIMBY syndrome. I say you want keep it there where it is. Don't send it to us. We don't have any nuclear power plants.
Congresswoman, with Senator Reid retiring not too far in the future, do you feel ready as an individual? Could you kind of step up and be the lead for the delegation on that fight?
Well, I'm certainly willing to, and I've certainly been involved in the issue for a long time. I've written about it, I've studied it, we fought it for 30 years. You know, I won't slack off.
And long before you came to the Hill.
Well, that's right. I did it
in the state as well,
academically.
Weren't you?
That's correct.
Absolutely. Now, how likely is this consent requiring bill to pass with, I'm imagining a lot of opposition with some senators and congresspersons saying, we don't want it either, you put it in Nevada.
Well, it'll be hard to get it passed, but you've got also a Senate version of the bill as well. And remember, this comes out of the recommendations of the Blue Ribbon Commission.
Sure, we're going to talk about that next.
So there's some force behind it. We're not giving up.
Speaking of which, she says her bill has blue ribbon approval. We're going to explain that to you right after this.
You're watching Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, brought to you by Caesars Entertainment, the Las Vegas Sands Corporation, the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, Boyd Gaming, NB Energy, the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada, Rogich Communications Group, and Jim Marsh Automotive. Want more federal news that affects Nevada, its businesses, and its residents? Then you need to subscribe to Nevada's Washington Watch newsletter, your sole source of online news direct from Washington, D.C. Visit joycecommunications.com and subscribe today.
I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
First day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does.
And like that, you're a job creator.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No, no, no.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our discussion of delegation efforts to get Nevada's permission for a Nevada-based nuclear waste repository. My guest today is working hard for that bill. Her name is Nevada U.S. Congresswoman Dina Titus. Well, in 2010, President Obama directed Energy Secretary Chu to establish the Blue Ribbon Commission for America's Nuclear Future. The goal? A comprehensive review of policies for managing the back end of the nuclear fuel cycle and recommendations for developing a safe, long-term solution for managing the nation's nuclear waste. In 2012, the commission issued a report that recommended a consent-based approach focused on the dual tracks of interim storage and geologic disposal capacity. And in 2013, the administration issued the Strategy for the Management and Disposal of Used Nuclear Fuel and High-Level Radioactive Waste, affirming that any solution for the final disposition of the waste must be based not only on sound science, but also on achieving public acceptance at the local, state, and tribal levels. So, Congresswoman, we have, quote, consent-based approach and, quote, public acceptance. And kind of when you're fighting for your bill, sounds like you can just quote the commission, can't you?
Well, exactly. And these were experts. It was a bipartisan commission. It was the scientific experts as well as political leaders. And this is a recommendation because they saw that the Yucca Mountain project from the outset has not worked. People have not gotten buy-in. They're suspicious of what's going on out there. Decisions made for political, not scientific reasons. And this makes a whole lot more sense. And there are some states that would like to see it. Mississippi talks about the salt flats. Texas has mentioned it. The governor of New Mexico has actually sent a letter talking about interim storage in that state. So if there are places that want it, why are we not looking there?
And why aren't we?
Well, because they have invested in the Yucca Mountain project. They've wasted $15 billion, maybe more than that, dollars out there, and so they don't want to write that off and go somewhere else and start all over.
And you all have always found that an interesting, strange argument, haven't you? That we're going to spend billions and billions, but so far it's not a good idea. So what we'll do is we'll spend billions
and billions more.
We're just throwing bad money or good money after bad, aren't we?
I call it down a rat hole. I think we need to look for some other use of that project. Some people have talked about potential data storage out there because it's a big tunnel. I don't know, I thought maybe you could grow white asparagus and mushrooms, but that's not quite a good analogy to make.
You know, would you please tell us more about the Blue Ribbon Commission? You know, why was it formed? And also, too, is Secretary Chu turning out to be a good Energy Department leader as regards Yucca Mountain in your estimation?
Well, previously that's the case. Secretary Moniz now has taken a very deliberative, but following up with Secretary Chu's work.
But were you happy with him when he was here?
Well, I was very supportive of having this Blue Ribbon Commission because the president had put a stop to this. No more funding was going into Yucca Mountain. Let's look for a viable solution, and a Blue Ribbon Commission that is outside the politics of it, I thought was a good way to go.
So again, the commission's goal was, quote, managing the back end of the nuclear fuel cycle, which is a fancy way of saying managing the waste.
The long-term storage, right.
So what other options is the commission presenting, like a dry cask on site?
Well, the possibility of keeping it on site is very real. These casks won't fill, or the places won't fill up for maybe another 100 years. And if you keep it where it is, that's in somebody else's backyard, but it eliminates the problem of transportation because all of this would have to be transported from across the country to Nevada. It would come down major highways, through small towns, by schools, by churches. This is not a safe approach.
You know, I want to ask you your opinion on the question of the administration's help or harm toward your goal of keeping nuke waste out of the state. You know, has President Obama has he been consistently good for that no nukes effort, or were you expecting more? You know, I remember when he ran and Senator Reid said he promised Senator Reid, you know, I'm on your side of this. Do you wish it was a little more forceful that this is done? I mean, where are you at?
He stopped appropriating funds. He has said that this is not the way to go. It was the court, when it was challenged in court, who said finish out the studies, but there's not much money left. So he's been a good friend to us. And I think we need to ask people running for president next time what they intend to do.
But for you, it's always a constant fight.
That's right.
And can't change, I suppose, till it's done, right? Well, when we return, what is next in the nuclear waste repository battle in 2016 and beyond? We'll get my guest's thoughts on all that right after this.
Nevada's direct link to Capitol Hill. Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, the only statewide Nevada news show based in Washington, D.C. All the top federal matters that matter most to Nevadans. Marilee talks with our congressional delegation and other leaders about the federal news you need to know. Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, Nevada's Eye on Capitol Hill.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No, no, no.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. Play responsibly.
We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
Every child follows a path in life. For many, that path will lead them to a door that gives them a place to grow, to learn, to belong, a place to forge their future. Because while many doors open, these doors transform. They did for us. Support your local boys and girls clubs. Great futures start here.
There are a million places you'd never consider texting. So why would you do it while driving? Leave risky driving to the professionals. Stop the texts, and together we can stop the wrecks.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our discussion of the latest in the effort to prevent Nevada from becoming the nation's nuclear waste dump. And my guest today is Nevada U.S. Congresswoman Dina Titus. Well, Reps Titus and Heck's bill is a companion bill to a Senate bill introduced in March by Senators Reid and Heller. So there's a big effort here to put Nevada and not the feds in the driver's seat regarding disposal decisions. So Congress had originally planned to move the toxic waste to Nevada in 1987, but our delegation, along with the help of environmentalist groups, have managed to stall the project thus far. The unique thing about her consent bill is this: the original 1982 Nuclear Waste Policy Act gave former Governor Kenny Gwinn the authority of a veto in 2002, but Congress overrode that decision. This new proposed bill would not allow Congress to override Nevada's decision. So, Congressman, you know, I thought of you and smiled while I was doing research for this show. I saw a headline about your bill in a publication called Liberty Voice. It said, quote, "Nevada may have final say over Yucca Mountain." And I thought, well, she's so used to hearing the feds decide this and the feds decide that, but your bill would wrest that control away.
Well, that's right. You know, Nevada has kind of been at the mercy of the federal government for a long time. They own 87% of the land in Nevada, and they've made a decision about Yucca Mountain. So we are pretty independent in Nevada and individualistic. We kind of stick up for ourselves.
You know, what made you think of this avenue, you know, because you've been, right, you know, so far educating colleagues about what it means of the shipments and what can happen with the groundwater and what the scientists are saying, and that it's wrong. And you've been relying on that, and luckily you got enough people on your side. You have President Obama, you have this and that. But what made you finally go, wait a minute, the feds have all this power. we're the ones who should be consenting on this. What kind of got you going on this?
I guess you have to just fight fire with fire. You know, we can make all the scientific arguments we want to, because there are plenty, just as you mentioned, about the water and the faults and the transportation. Those are all good arguments, but they don't seem to matter. They fall on deaf ears to people like Shimka. So let's make the political argument. And the best political argument is, how can you make a decision that affects a state or a community or Native Americans, because they are very independent and have their own sovereignty, without including them. So now we're going to make the political argument as well as all the scientific arguments.
You know, will you help my audience understand the kind of the inner workings of Congress that grants a state governor, Kenny Gwynn, veto authority, but then, like it was never granted in the first place, they can just override it. There might be a lot of people watching and listening today statewide that they don't really understand that.
Well, I can see why they wouldn't. This is one of those symbolic uses of politics. You put in the language, yeah, the state can veto it, but then in the fine print further down in another section, that can be overridden by a vote of the Congress. And kind of the rationale was doing what's good for the nation as opposed to letting one state override that national interest.
So the good news, though, for Nevadans and advocates of your bill that work to stop the repository from being built, is that your bill would prevent Congress from doing that type of override. Is that correct?
Exactly, because I don't believe that putting the waste at Yucca Mountain is in the interest of the nation. It's certainly not in the interest of Nevada, but not in the interest of the nation either, because of all the transportation throughout the whole country. Also, the impact possibly of an accident on the economy of Nevada. If you had one accident or potential accident, that could devastate our economy, and tourism nationwide is tied to that economy. So I believe that this is the right way to go.
What's the support of the bill so far? Who's for it? Who's against?
Well, every time we have an amendment or try to make the good fight, we get about 100 votes. So now that we're taking this new tack, we'll see where it goes. But we keep adding supporters, we keep fighting it, we keep talking about it in the press, so we'll never give up.
There aren't many days on the Hill this fall, as far as times of voting and what have you. Do you think it'll get a vote this year? It's probably going to be looked at more in 2016, won't it?
I think that's exactly right. And some of the momentum may
But you're setting the pace for it right now.
You're right. We're kind of laying the groundwork, getting all the paperwork done, getting it in there. And as this
doing a lot of meetings, too, with your colleagues, right? And educating about why is this important,
That's
correct?
right. And I think as the presidential campaign wears on and more people are asked this question, and as they come to Nevada, you know, we're an early state, maybe that will help us to gain some momentum as well.
And wouldn't some of your colleagues also like about it that you don't just say the consent of the governor of Nevada, you say the host state governor. So perhaps in the future, this bill could, you know, you're the state of Rhode Island or you're the state of Mississippi. You might have something that affects you that your governor or your Indian tribes, et cetera.
Oh, that's exactly right. It's not specific to Nevada. It's consent to wherever it might go. Right, exactly.
All right, and when we return, it is mailbag time, and Sheila P. of Las Vegas about to read your letter to the Congresswoman right here on the air, coming up after this.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No, no, no.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. Play responsibly.
We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
Nevada's direct link to Capitol Hill. Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. The only statewide Nevada news show based in Washington, D.C. All the top federal matters that matter most to Nevadans. Marilee talks with our congressional delegation and other leaders about the federal news you need to know. Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. Nevada's Eye on Capitol Hill.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Having your child hospitalized can be a terrifying experience for any parent. In one moment, everything can change. Here at the Reno Ronald McDonald House, we can help. We keep families together when it matters the most by providing a home away from home for families with children in the hospital. Parents who stay at the Ronald McDonald House have more time with their children during the healing process. Please contact us today for more information and to see how you can help. Donate online at rmhc-reno.org.
Want more federal news that affects Nevada, its businesses, and its residents? Then you need to subscribe to Nevada's Washington Watch newsletter, your sole source of online news direct from Washington, D.C. Visit joycecommunications.com and subscribe today.
We are back with the closing segment of Eye on Washington. It is our mailbag segment. That's your big part in our show, and it's when we read a letter chosen from among those sent to the mailbag page of our Joyce Communication website. So, Congresswoman, we have a letter right here from Sheila P. of Las Vegas. Okay. She writes you, she says, "Dear Congresswoman Titus, you've been a strong advocate for women, in particular in political issues. Can you discuss an example of why including issues from a female perspective or for a woman in particular is important to you?"
Absolutely. And this goes back to the days that I was a teacher. I always encouraged young women to get involved because we need their perspective. I think women are the agents of change. If they're not at the table, then nothing's going to be any different from the status quo. They not only change the policy agenda by bringing up topics like domestic violence or women's health, but they also change the process. Women come to decisions differently from men, and they're always more collaborative and more inclusive.
Well, that's great. And I think you've done, speaking of women's issues, haven't you been doing a lot on women for in healthcare?
I have. I'm a member of the Women's Caucus and also the Women's Pro-Choice Caucus and a Women's Immigration Caucus. A lot of work on women's health, the domestic violence issue, sexual discrimination and bullying, and we've been working on women veterans too because they're kind of the forgotten veterans. We want to be sure that there are special services to accommodate them.
You know, we just did the other thing we do for the state other than the show is our Nevada's Washington Watch newsletter, and one of our writers just did something on that, the domestic violence work that you've been doing.
Very important.
Sounds great. That is it for this week's Eye on Washington, and we hope you'll join us this time as we discuss more important federal matters, their impact on you in Nevada. You can visit the joycecommunications.com page or our Facebook page for more of the very latest from the Hill that impacts your life. Follow me on Twitter, and you can watch previous Eye on Washington shows you may have missed on our YouTube page at Eye on Washington NV. Thanks for joining us on Eye on Washington. I'm Marilee Joyce in Washington, D.C. Have a good day.